Don't make a scene, my mother hissed, her fingers already peeling off my wrist as the train doors screamed open behind us. The sound of metal on metal swallowed my sob. The platform smelled like oil and cold rain. My suitcase, too big for my hands, tipped over and no one bent to help. My father didn't even look back. He adjusted his coat, straightened his shoulders and said it like a business decision, clean and final. You're not our responsibility anymore. The doors slammed. The train pulled away. Wind slapped my face where tears kept falling anyway. I remember staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the station window, my breath fogging it up, my own eyes looking like they belonged to someone else. A child shaped like me. Left behind. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 27. What does a parent owe the child they choose to abandon? People walked past. Shoes clicked. Someone laughed too loudly. The clock above the platform ticked like it was counting down something important I didn't understand yet. I hugged my coat tighter even though it didn't help, and noticed how the bench beside me looked like it was waiting. That was the moment I realized something quiet and terrifying. Love, when withdrawn without warning, doesn't scream, it leaves an echo. That bench stayed empty for a long time before anyone sat beside me. I was still staring at my hands, red and shaking, when I heard a voice that didn't rush me. Miss? Are you waiting for someone? Not why are you alone, not where are your parents. Just that. I looked up. He was older, gray hair tucked under a wool cap, coat worn at the elbows like it had lived a real life. He smelled faintly of coffee in winter. I nodded even though it wasn't true. Lying felt easier than explaining how disposable I'd just become. The train station grew quieter. Night pressed in. My parents' words replayed in my head, steady and cruel, like they'd rehearsed them. I kept expecting my phone to buzz. It didn't. Silence can be louder than shouting. You dropped this, the man said, picking up my scarf. I hadn't realized it slipped off. He handed it to me carefully like it mattered. That small kindness cracked something open. My breath hitched before I could stop it. He didn't panic. Didn't lecture. He just sat there, the bench no longer empty, and said almost to himself, no kid should be alone at a place like this. I wrapped the scarf around my neck, feeling its warmth soak into my skin, and for the first time since the train left I wondered, what if this night wasn't ending where my parents decided it should? He bought me soup from a vending machine that rattled like it might give up halfway through. We sat on the floor because the benches were cold, and he waited until I took the first spoonful before asking my name. When I told him, he repeated it softly like he was making sure it stayed real. I'm Samuel, he said. I teach history. Or I used to. There was a pause. A small smile. Retired now. Too much noise. I told him everything in pieces. Not the full story, just enough. The argument. The suitcase. The sentence my parents delivered like a receipt. He didn't interrupt. Just listened, nodding once in a while, his hands folded as if holding something fragile. When the station announced the last train, I flinched. Samuel noticed. You don't have to decide anything tonight, he said. But you shouldn't sleep here. I followed him outside without really choosing to. His car was old and smelled like books. On the dashboard sat a small mirror, cracked at the corner. He adjusted it before starting the engine, catching my eyes in it for half a second. I looked away. At his apartment, he laid out a blanket on the couch, placed the scarf beside me and said, you can stay as long as you need. As he turned off the light, the room fell quiet. For the first time that night, the silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like space. Morning came gently, like it was afraid of waking me too fast. Sunlight slipped through the curtains and landed on the scarf folded at the edge of the couch. I watched it for a long time before sitting up, half expecting the apartment to vanish, the night to reveal itself as a trick my mind played to survive. But the kettle whistled. Toast popped. Real sounds. Samuel didn't ask me to call my parents. He didn't suggest apologies or second chances. He simply asked what school I went to, then wrote down the number for the district office on the back of an old envelope. We'll start there, he said. Days turned into weeks without ceremony. He gave me the spare room. Bought me notebooks. Sat across from me at the small kitchen table while I did homework, correcting nothing unless I asked. Sometimes he'd hum, off-key, like the silence needed a companion. Once I caught my reflection in his cracked mirror again. Older clothes, tired eyes, but steadier. I adjusted the scarf around my neck, my hands no longer shaking. My parents didn't call. Not once. And slowly, painfully, I understood the truth I'd been avoiding. They hadn't lost me at the station. They had already let go long before. By the time I turned 18, the scarf was frayed at the edges. I wore it anyway. To exams. To my first part-time job. To moments when doubt crept in quietly, wearing my parents' voices. Samuel noticed everything without commenting. On my birthday, he left a small box on the table and pretended to read the paper. Inside was a pen. Heavy. Engraved with my name. "So you remember who you are when you sign important things," he said. College was a stretch. Money was thin. Pride thinner. I worked late shifts and studied early mornings. Sometimes I'd come home exhausted and find a note on the counter. "Soup's in the pot." Or just "proud of you." No signature needed. My parents stayed invisible. Holidays passed like empty rooms. It hurt less than I expected, which scared me. Indifference is a strange kind of healing. One evening, while filling out a scholarship form, I paused at the question about family support. The pen hovered. The cracked mirror across the room caught my face. Older now, sharper. I realized then that survival had quietly turned into direction, that I wasn't waiting to be chosen anymore. Success didn't arrive loudly. Learned how to knock. Internships. Late nights. A job offer that made Samuel blink twice before smiling like he already knew. I moved into my own place, but I kept the scarf in the closet and the pen on my desk. Some things don't leave just because you do. Samuel's health faded the way dusk does. Slow, polite, pretending nothing was wrong. He brushed off concerns, changed the subject, asked about my work instead. One night, after a long pause, he slid a folder across the table. "Just in case," he said. Inside were documents. Careful. He'd made me his beneficiary years ago. Not out of obligation. Out of choice. My throat tightened, but he shook his head gently. "Don't turn this into something sad," he said. "It's just paperwork." When he passed, the apartment felt too quiet. The chair across from me looked like it was waiting again. Grief came without drama. Steady, aching, respectful. I didn't crumble. I stood straighter. That surprised me. Months later, a producer called. They wanted me on a business segment. My hands shook as I adjusted the scarf before the camera rolled. Somewhere, a television turned on. And someone who once let me go finally saw what I'd become. The call from my mother came unexpectedly during the segment. I saw you," she stammered, voice cracking over the line. "On TV, you've done so much." Her sentences tripped over themselves. Pride, shame, desperation, all tangled together like weeds. She asked to meet. She begged, she cried, she offered apologies I didn't ask for. Then, almost casually, she mentioned money. Millions. As if seeing my success automatically meant I owed her. I listened. My reflection in the cracked mirror from my apartment's hallway caught my eyes again. Steady. Pulled. Taken. My scarf hung there, frayed but loyal. I didn't answer immediately. I let her ramble, every word etching itself onto my mind. Her expectation of entitlement was palpable, heavy in the air. I let the silence stretch, thick, uncomfortable, unforgiving. Finally I spoke, calm, deliberate. "I never owed you anything. You abandoned me. You forgot me long before the station. This ends now." Her breathing hitched. The color drained from her face like paint being wiped away. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once the words failed her. The only sound was the soft rustle of my scarf. We met in a quiet cafe. She arrived late, clutching her purse like it held her dignity. I didn't rise to greet her. I simply sat, the scarf around my neck, my pen lying on the table. The same objects that had quietly carried me through 15 years of absence. Her eyes darted around, desperate for recognition, for the forgiveness she thought was mine to give. I let her sit. I let her speak. She offered everything she thought could buy redemption. Apologies, explanations, promises. But I had built a life on what she had never given. Love, trust, presence. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of documents, contracts, and bank statements. Proof of the empire I'd quietly built. Everything in my name. Every company. Every asset. Legal, untouchable, untethered from her. Her hands trembled. She reached for it, but I didn't offer help. I didn't speak. Silence did the work. The cold clarity of my choices reflected back at her in every line of that folder. When she finally looked up, hope had drained from her face. Only regret remained. She stood, clutching her purse, leaving behind nothing but a shadow of the mother who had abandoned me. I folded the scarf neatly, set the pen beside it, and sipped my coffee. Outside life carried on. Quiet. Certain.